All right, we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So first off, welcome to another episode of the Olivia Gamber podcast. I'm here with another Olivia, and we believe that you heal your way to the top. And I'm excited for this conversation. It's going to be a real and raw conversation
Yep.
with Olivia Wilmsen, who I've known about a year now.
Mhm.
And she first came to me as a client for Career Evolved and soon became friends, then team members. She now works at Career Evolved, and we live and breathe healing, transformation, mindset, energy, all of it. And we wanted to let you guys in on the conversations that we have every day because
Every
it's
day.
just what we live and breathe.
hmm
And so I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm thrilled that we decided to do this, that you asked me to come and be part of this journey because this is
Absolutely.
absolutely a journey for you. And it's been a journey for me as well. And you've been an integral part in my healing journey for sure, as I'm working on my own rising to the top journey as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. So let's just dive in. Like the spiritual journey, spiritual transformation. I mean, it's now become popular, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
what does
Almost,
that mean to you?
I was going to say, it's almost one of those things where people, talk about it or write about it, but do we really know what we're talking about? What we mean? For me, spiritual transformation has been literally my life the last year. I went from being unemployed to losing my relationship that I thought was going all the way, as they say, to having to rebuild my life, really. And spiritual transformation to me is a connection with yourself with a deeper purpose. And for those of you, those around you, I've had to find my connection with how I feel about me and how I feel about what I do every day, what I say every day, and how that affects other people. Because your actions and your decisions are not just about you.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that so many people take for granted. I did realign with my faith. I grew up Catholic and I had a lot of qualms about that. And I always believed in God. I always prayed, even after being, out of the Catholic Church as an adult. But I reconnected with my faith really because this last year, I felt like I kind of just didn't know who I was anymore. Losing your job is an identity mind shift.
Absolutely.
When you're not working, you feel like you don't have a purpose. And then when you're not like fully independent and you're used to being independent, because I truthfully like was not able to be fully independent because of that. Yeah, I just had this shift. And so I needed to lean on something. And for me, that was my relationship with God.
Hmm.
And because of that, I am a different person. I am more connected with the spirituality of my relationship with God. And it's a completely different relationship than I had prior. I'm now singing in our church. I'm volunteering. And I've actually been reading the Bible, which I did not do growing up. I don't know what it is about Catholic education, at least when you're going to public school and you just go to CCD, as they called it. Still don't know what CCD stands for, which is sad. But really, for me, spiritual transformation is about your connection that goes on a deeper level with how you experience life and how you can not only be a better version of you, but you can be a better version of you with other people. And I think that to me has been the most powerful piece of my journey is how I show up
Hmm.
for the people that I'm involved with, the clients that I interact with every day, us as, boss, employee, and friends,
Hmm.
relationships, romantic or familial or friendships. I really feel like because I've gotten deeper with my spiritual journey, I am a better friend, daughter, dog mom, all those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, spiritual transformation is such a esoteric term.
Yeah.
And for me, I just think about that concept of walking yourself back home and really getting to know yourself. And it's a journey that you must take alone because it's about going deep within and connecting to yourself and God. And I truly believe that we are all one with God
Mhm.
and we all have a unique purpose, calling, and gifts. And we can only really discover those depths and that meaning through that spiritual journey. And it's really for me about getting deeper connected to myself, which is getting deeper connected to God, because
Mhm.
I believe that I have a mission that's guided by God, and I have a purpose and a calling and something that's running through me. And I believe I'm co-creating with God. So for me, it's about continuing to hold space to receive those messages. And we can only receive them when we quiet all the noise, the distractions, all the drama, what we think are problems, right? And starting to change that story and realize that God doesn't put more on our plate than we can handle.
Yes.
And all of our challenges are serving us in our evolution. And when we can look at it from that perspective of faith, that's when we get the purpose. That's when we get the meaning. That's when we get our power back. That's when we get to surrender because we are not in control.
That dawned on something. So for me, last weekend, I was coming out of church and I saw a text from you saying that, we were having an issue with something involving the business. And I know that it just, made you tailspin. And I finally had the strength and the calm groundedness to be able to serve you and help you. And I got on the phone. I said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pray first.
Yeah.
Then we are going to figure out how we're going to find a solution. Because one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from a previous boss, who was a fantastic boss, was let's focus on solutions and let's focus less on the problem itself. Because if we keep beating it around the bush about why this thing happened and it bothered me and this happened and this happened and this happened, we just stay in that low vibrational energy.
Absolutely.
And so we prayed.
We did.
And when we started praying, you all of a sudden just shifted everything. And you were like, okay, so God, please remove all obstacles because we're doing this to help others. And it just turned into this whole thing. And I was like, all right, my bad, it's done. And you've done that for me. You've been able to do that and teach me how to be that source of light.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that you called me and that you shed that light in that moment when I wasn't ready to see it. Because, like, honestly, when your accounts get frozen for 90 days,
I won't get specific, but
it was extremely triggering and it felt unfair. It was so easy for me to go to this victim place and just want to like scorch earth. And then what you were able to help me do was like, it was almost like it turned the energy into a force. And that's what God has the power to do when you allow it to flow through you, right? And allow yourself to trust and be that delusional, like this is serving me.
Right.
And God, and trusting that God's plan is better than our plan. And
Right.
I mean, sometimes you and I have been through some crazy journey. It almost feels like really another one.
And honestly, it's fine to think that we've only known each other a year because in some ways it feels like 2-3 years.
It does because of what we've experienced.
It's been such a roller coaster. And it's funny, once we got the problem solved the other day, I was like, you guys, this is better. Now the payment process that Olivia ended up finding was a better solution for us. So moving forward, this is actually removing situations and problems for going forward.
Absolutely.
So it's funny how easy it is for us to stay stuck in that victim. Why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Then when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, wait, this is actually better for me.
Exactly. We always have a choice. It's either happening to us or it's happening for us. And that choice is not always easy to make.
It's not. When you're in it, when you're in it, it is absolute, you can swear, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's absolute shit. Like, you're just like, F this. Like, that's where I'm at, right? I mean, there's been times where I literally couldn't get out of bed and I was like, there was nothing that was going to get me out of bed that day. But I always do get out of bed at any point. I always have to get up, right? Like, I have a dog, I have a responsibility, you have a kid with special needs. And at the end of the day, our spiritual journey is about how we show up. Not only for ourselves, because we have to show up for ourselves differently, but how we show up for others and how we show others
Yep.
as role models. I think that one of the things you told me was, if you can't see the change you want, you have to be the change. I actually told a client that the other day. She had a limiting belief on her worksheet. We do this exercise where we have our clients really outline what are the three big ideas or beliefs they have about themselves that they know is not serving them, but they know it's still a belief. It's still something that in the back of their head. And she wrote, I just don't see enough women, Black women, who do what she does in her industry.
Hmm.
And I said, well, there's got to be somebody who's got to do it and start it. Why not that be you?
I'm so glad you brought up this topic because you know how passionate I am about really uplifting specifically women of color
Right.
because I am one, I'm a Latina woman, and I know all women need this though.
Yeah.
And so all men need this. That's why we serve everybody. But
Right.
what this really comes down to, what I've realized on the spiritual journey, the most critical journey is the self love journey.
It is.
Everyone is still dealing with self love. A lot of folks could be watching us right now and saying, well, that's nice for you, but I'm here, right? And so trust me, we've both been there. And
Yeah.
I come from extremely humble beginnings in the mud, brick by brick. So it's like, trust me, I get it. I've been back against the wall, credit cards, everything like maxed out. And so being in those positions where you truly are struggling to see that you are worthy of more and then
That the true light.
having the faith to hold the vision when you're in a storm, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It is hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel when you are in the thick of the darkness. And it was just not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, where it's like my logical brain was hiding
Hmm.
and the emotional part of my brain was screaming. And I knew what I was thinking was wrong, but I had a hard time climbing out of that hole. And so what I did was, instead of doing what I used to do, I prayed, I meditated, and then I reached out to a friend of mine who just knows my journey really well. And I just said, I need you to get me out of this thinking. Here's what I decided to just be vulnerable and share with her the deep, dark thought that I had about myself. And I said, I'm scared to tell you this, but this is what I'm thinking and this is what I'm going through. I am asking for both support and advice. By the way, one of the best pieces of advice somebody ever gave me was asking someone when they're in this situation is, are you looking for support or are you looking for solution?
I love that.
Or are you looking for both? Because sometimes you do need both. I actually asked somebody earlier that today, and she was just so relieved that I asked that question.
Hmm.
'Cause sometimes we just then
Yeah, you don't want to be fixed, right?
we don't always need to be fixed in that moment. Maybe later. But my point of this is because I went through those steps and I chose to ask for help in that way, my friend was able to get me out of that thinking and to stop that spiral. And I forced myself to get out of the house. That's another piece of advice I have for everybody. Be with nature. When you are literally like feet on the ground in the earth, there is something so spiritual about being one with nature. And we live in one of the most beautiful places on earth. That's one of the reasons why I chose to move here.
Hmm.
I mean, can't beat the mountains.
Absolutely.
And I really did that day while I was on the phone with her, chose to go out and just be outside, whether it's cold or rainy or whatever. Like, don't let that stop you from just taking a breath and literally smelling fresh air. Even if it's 5 seconds, it's better than zero.
It's so true because we live in such a digital age and being just outside immediately raises your frequency, your vibration. It changes your perspective. And it's just that pattern interrupt that gets you back into perspective. I know when I'm just able to step away and be in the moment and truly like witness the sound of the trees, feel the breeze on my face, feel the sunlight, it's like an immediate expansion to my energy, my aura. And I just feel more connected to myself when I'm outside because I'm not in my head anymore.
And we spend so much time in front of our screens on our phone with our neck down that and we're just literally our children. I mean, I just can't believe how many of these kids have a phone, how early, how young. It's insane. But yeah, if we don't reconnect with literally the world that was created for us to live off of, then we've lost the purpose. We've lost really why we're here.
Exactly. I love it. So I want to ask you a question because I
Okay.
know that we both grew up Catholic, it sounds
Yeah.
like. So being able to kind of evolve into this more expansive spiritual identity,
Yeah.
how has that evolved for you?
Gosh, it's evolved a lot. I finally accepted that, you know, my story, my version of my belief with God is what I want it to be. And it's what I have discovered and interpreted, right? My brother was like, the Bible is really what people interpret it as. Is like, yeah, well, it's a book.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to interpret a book differently. And to me, I've been going to this non-denominational church, and it's actually very much in line with nature. It's called Mission Grove. And it's about the connection of trees, building a grove. And that's
Hmm.
Pastor John's whole purpose. And to me, that's it. It's about how am I one tree out of many? How am I one branch out of this big, beautiful tree, right? Like, what is my connection with God and the greater purpose that He has provided me to be part of a community, part of this world? And that's really what's shifted for me in my faith about how I show up as part of a sisterhood, a familyhood, a friendhood, like whatever, a Christianhood as humans. We are so quick
Hmm.
to separate ourselves and
Yeah.
label ourselves. And
Yeah.
we forget that we are all one.
Absolutely.
That is really where I think that my faith shift has come from. And because I am adamant about not following, I don't follow rules. Never had, never will. I mean, I follow some rules, but I don't like them most of the time.
Yeah.
But
You're a sacred rebel.
I am a sacred rebel. I'm an angel with like a little devil on her shoulder at all times.
We all are light
We
and
all.
dark. That's human.
It,
That's the human journey.
it's accepting what we are, that we are human at the end of the day. Exactly. And that we need to not only accept that, we need to embrace it.
This is it right here. For me, it's been a challenge to find that community in traditional structures of religion because
Mhm.
I don't believe in judging others harshly. I truly
Yep.
believe that God does not make mistakes and God does not make any mistakes. We must love and accept everyone. And we must be willing to let go of the judgment, let go of the criticism, let go of the blame game.
Mhm.
That's the only way that we heal and that we can create unity and that we can evolve as a species is seeking understanding and curiosity over judgment and separation. And I think that takes a higher level of energy and consciousness. And
It does.
that's why,
It takes thoughtfulness to do that. And that actually leads me to a question for you. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Were you finished? Sorry.
yeah, please go
I
ahead.
do this a lot. Um, Speaking of judgment, I know that you've been judged and ridiculed many, many times as you've been building yourself over the years. And you
Absolutely.
did come from humble beginnings, but then you skyrocketed your career and then you had to rebuild because you chose to walk away from a business that just wasn't serving you. And so I'm curious, how have you found the ways to stay grounded, to stay centered, and to put the judgers and the criticizers t- to the back of the closet to however you want to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I'm not the first or the last who experiences this on the growth journey. It anyone who's doing anything is going to be criticized. Anyone who's innovating is going to be criticized and misunderstood. So I've become accepting that that's part of the territory. If you're paving a new path and you're a trailblazer in your community and you're the first to do things, there's going to be judgment and there's going to be envy, but there's also love and there's also appreciation. So with the light and dark, it's all there. It's all attention. It's all energy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I just see it for what it is because at the end of the day, like anyone who's reacting to growth and expansion with judgment and criticism is in suffering.
I was just going to say it is typically My mother always used to say this. It's because they're insecure. Girls would pick on me when I was younger. I was always just kind of different growing up, and I would get picked on or bullied. And for what? She'd say it's insecurity. And that's true. Typically, what happens when we get judged or criticized, it's not a reflection of who we are and what we're doing.
No.
It's a reflection of what that person is feeling deeper beyond our imagination because they're not connected to
Yeah.
self.
It's they're projecting their limiting
Right.
beliefs
Onto us.
onto us. And so when you realize it has nothing to do with you, you allow it to be what it is and you don't need to do anything about it, right?
Right.
But I
Right.
think one thing I want to bring up is most of the planet is still living in old programming of scarcity mindset, which is a more of a zero sum game where your success is taking away from my success. Or because you're rising, that means I'm not going to be able to rise. There's always this constant comparison and competition.
Right.
And this is just how we've been programmed since childhood. It starts early with our conditioning, right? And so, in order to break that conditioning and be able to truly believe in a more abundance mindset that, you know, get curious. Well, what did they do that I'm not doing? And this is something where I don't allow it to trigger me as much as I used to because I can relate to it. I used to feel that way.
Mhm.
I used to be very jealous and judgmental of all these amazing entrepreneurs that I was like, I'm smarter than them. Why am I not where they're at? Right.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I got out of that victim, judgmental, critical energy and I leaned into curiosity and I sought them out as mentors. I invested in their time and that's when I was able to evolve when I started to lean in and get curious and change that judgment energy into, well, maybe I'm missing something here. And that's how we break through.
That maybe I'm missing something here is key. It's critical. Because if we don't stop ourselves from the continuous spiral that we all do, it's what I like to call the comparison thief of joy
Yes.
mentality. Because if we continue to compare and we continue to complain, it continues to prevent us from having that thing that we are complaining about, joy.
Yeah. And let's be real, like we are not living at this high frequency 24/7.
No.
We are on a very treacherous climb on our journeys and we continue to rapidly evolve. And with that evolution comes a lot of things breaking, right? As you're growing and as you're expanding, things are breaking. You have to let go of things that no longer serve you. And I think that's something I'd love to hear from you. Like the idea of letting go and clearing space and
Oh,
how that's
I
gone.
have so many thoughts on that. I'm glad you asked. You know, my family has always been supportive and loving, but not in the way that I wanted them to be in some ways. And it wasn't because they didn't love me or didn't support me. It's just they're not on the same path as me. And so I've had to accept that the reactions or the responses I get from them are just what they are. They're just responses and they're just reactions. And I have to be okay with that. I can't go search for what I want from the people who aren't even remotely close to where I am on the journey. And if I need that, then I need to go find people like you
Yeah.
who are connected spiritually, who are rising to the top. Like you said, you invested time in the people that you were jealous of.
Hmm.
And if we don't do that, if we don't get curious, like you're saying, if we don't come from a place of care and concern, and curiosity is one of my favorite words and favorite notions, then we will continue to be stuck and we won't rise. One of the two pieces of, I guess you can put them on a chart for a successful conversation. I used to do this class when I was a learning and development manager. We talked about conversational capacity. How do you have the capacity to have a quality conversation? And it was this balance of curiosity and empathy. If you have too much curiosity, you're going to seem like you're interrogating somebody. And if you have too much empathy, you're just going to seem like all you're doing is going, uh-huh, okay, great. Oh, I hear you. And well, you're not asking questions to understand me. So to go down that rabbit hole that I'm going down. Um, I just feel like I've had to just acknowledge that unfortunately some of the relationships that I've had or some of the experiences I've had recently just don't serve me. Maybe they can serve me later. Maybe I can be friend with or be closer with certain people in my life. But right now, some of them just are going to continue to hold me back and I have to let go.
And this is something that is such a tough part of the spiritual journey, because as you raise your consciousness, as you raise your awareness, as you do more of this work, the lens at which you view the world starts to evolve, and what aligns to your true values starts to evolve. So the spiritual journey for me is about being more true to myself and
Mhm.
saying no to what no longer aligns
Mhm.
in the most kind and compassionate way. But it takes so much more energy to grasp on and force things and try to convince people to understand and convey.
Things.
And the more you try to convince and push and press, you're just creating more friction and you're slowing down your own evolution. Because when I started to just let go and allow and surrender to the flow of what is meant to be, right? You can't force people to change. You can't own their healing more than them. And you definitely can't fix and save people because they'll resent you for it.
So
So at the end of the day, what I learned and one of the biggest catalysts to my journey and transformation is finding those aligned connections that can see you. Because when you have the aligned connections, you don't have to convince or work hard to be understood and
so
seen.
true. And I will say that more you lean into that, the more it comes to you.
Exactly.
I mean, just earlier today, I was at this yoga event and I was talking to these women, one of which is an instructor at the studio I go to. And it's like I said to you not long ago, like I'm just one of my big goals, and as part of my 2024 vision was to connect with women who are on a similar spiritual journey as me, who are going to uplift me, who I can look up to. And sure enough, the next week, maybe the week after, I connected with this woman, Jenna. She invited me to this yoga event. And I'm having this conversation with them, and it sounds like what we're saying right now. That's what I've been asking for.
There you
And
go.
because I am not holding space for anything but, it's coming to me. It really is. Manifestation is a real.
I want to stack on this
Okay.
because I believe that most people settle for mediocrity with their connections. They settle
So
for
true.
convenience because it's so hard, especially as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
to connect with people and meet people. Everybody's so busy, right?
Mm-hmm. And make new
And
friends.
prioritizing that. And so what I found though is I need that alignment at this point in my journey, because the deeper I go with God and getting to know who I am and what I stand for, the less tolerance I have for those energies and connections that don't align with my values, because they're draining to my energy. And this is nothing against really people that aren't into spirituality. I love everybody. I just need more time to recharge when I can't bring my full self to the table. And so that doesn't serve me. And because we have such a big mission and there's so many people that need us and rely on us for guidance and energy and to be uplifted, I have to protect my energy at this point in the journey. And there was something, and this is
Mhm.
totally not spiritual, but Michael Jordan said on the way up, you got to be really selfish and just protect your energy a lot. And then when you're up there, you gotta really help everyone and
Right.
start
Then
to
you can
lift
reach
people
down.
up,
Right.
right? And so that's what I've had to realize is, man, it's so heartbreaking, but they can't all come with you on that climb because there's just not enough capacity to be dragging them up with you.
You can't get up if you're too busy dragging everybody with you. And that is the absolute truth that I have discovered through what you've taught me, through what I've learned from others. And that really is the case. You know, if you can't be the person you want to be, you can't be that for others.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that's really remarkable, I have to take a sip of water. I'm getting a little tickle in my throat. By the way, this wine's really good.
It is.
One of the things that's really remarkable to me about you, about working with you, is that you allow people around you, especially, our team, to be their whole selves. And to me, that is so important as leaders for us to empower our people, our employees, whatever, to bring their whole selves to work and to work on the journey that we're all on and that we're all at. I'm curious, what has led you to be the kind of leader that you are, the kind of influencer that you are in terms of how you lead not only our team at work, but the people in your life? You're a leader from, all facets.
I believe before you can lead others, you must first learn to lead yourself. To me, it comes down to my connection to God as the primary source in my life. And that source and connection, in order to continue that, I must be in integrity.
Yeah.
And that is authenticity to me. And every time you show up fully as you are, the imperfect human, showing up, even trying. And somewhere along the line, it became not cool to try, right? But I
Seriously.
really just have become so accepting on my journey because it's been a lot. And I won't go into the depths today. There's not enough time. But it's just when you accept all parts of yourself, the good, the bad, the light, the dark, and when you get a lot of criticism on this journey, you're forced to go inward and heal and accept so that that criticism doesn't come into your own mind, because
And trickle everyone
it
else
can
up.
only get you off your game if you don't believe in yourself and know who you are. So that's why it's so important on this spiritual journey to really spend time alone in meditation, in prayer, in stillness, to get to know yourself. And you can only do that by sitting with your thoughts and reflecting on your behavior and truly seeing yourself, because only you know all the intentions and the decisions that are made when no one's looking. And so for me, being able to be transparent allows space for others to be so too. And I think leadership,
Very true.
to be a great leader, and it's rare, is you must create a safe space for people to be transparent with you.
That's so true. And I really do think that's one of the reasons why you are so great to work with,
Thank
because you're
you.
so
I
transparent
appreciate
and
that.
you allow space for everyone to feel seen, heard, and understood, and to be able to speak their truth. And I can't stress that enough. This leads me to, I would say, probably our last question at this point. And that is this: is there a particular experience or there's a particular aha moment for you that has really shaped the spiritual transformation, the mindset, journey you've been on? Is there a particular experience that you'd like to share that really would, shed light on this whole thing?
I think the biggest accelerator for my healing journey started 3 years ago. I was 33 years old. And I think it was so pivotal because I think about just the symbolic nature of the number 33, because that's
Mm,
the year Christ died. And
that's right.
so for me,
Almost got
it just
goosebumps.
was the year that everything was turned upside down in my life. I had to leave a business partnership that I was in for 5 years that was a multi-million-dollar. I had all my identity in that business.
Yeah.
My son was then shortly after diagnosed with autism at age 3, and it just sent my world into a tailspin because I had to accept I was no longer on this high horse at the top of the chain. I was now in the mud, and I now had a son who was going to live a very different life. And I could never even begin to compare it to other children and all the things. He wasn't speaking, he was very behind on his development. And I had to really, the perfectionist type A achiever in me had to die, and I had to be reborn. I had to be reborn as someone who was fully loving and unconditionally accepting for my son. And I could only do that if I was fully loving and unconditionally of myself. So it forced me
Wow.
to go on several healing journeys where I knew in order to be the mom that I wanted to show up as, I needed to hold a lot of space for my own healing and my own reconciling of all the things I was fighting and the demons I was fighting in my mind and all the thoughts and all the negativity and all the garbage that was keeping me from being able to show up fully to serve my son and my family and then show up and build a company. It was like it took everything in me that I had to just pull all my energy in and go into a healing and then an even deeper journey to connect to God and get to know myself and really let go of all these emotional anchors that I no longer had any space to hold.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I've somewhat heard that story, but not quite at that depth. So thank you for sharing that. And that is really,
Absolutely.
I can only imagine why that really is the pivotal point for you. Ironically, hearing you say that, it made me realize that I think right around the time that I turned 33 is also, I think, the pivotal moment.
Of course,
Of
right?
course. I mean, we're both
Good.
Olivia.
Of course, it has to be.
It just has to be. So, thinking about that time in my life, that was right before my 33rd birthday, was when my ex and I were no longer together. And this was the guy after the guy who I thought I was going to be with. So, it was two men in my life who I really thought I was going to be with, both kind of ended within a year of each other. I mean, really, God, like, how much heartbreak can you possibly put me through on top of having lost my job just prior to that? So, it was just a lot. And at this point, right when I turned 33, I was in the middle of a job interview process with Southwest Airlines. I was like the dream. I wanted to work for them so badly. I knew people on the team. I really thought I had it. Didn't get the job. They told me I didn't express enough of my teamwork and collaboration skills. And I was like, are you kidding me? And at that moment, it just hit me like a brick. That's it. I'm moving. I knew that I wanted to move, but there were a million excuses, one of which was the then boyfriend, one of which was the job process I was in the middle of. And I remember saying to my cousin, who's like my sister, I remember saying to her, if I don't get this Southwest job, I'm moving to Phoenix. And she said, I really want that for you. I kind of almost don't want you to get the job. Hello. And fast forward 2 months later, I'm now 33 in 2 months, and I find your ad on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it was. And I was like, wait a minute, there's mountains in the background of her video. Her name's Olivia. Something's going on here. Then I, of course, learned that she was, in fact, in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. And I thought, oh my gosh, God is just pointing me in a direction that I just am like, let go. Here we go. You know, moved here finally. Um, was it smooth sailing after I moved? Nope, not at all. But it's been the most incredible, incredible journey over the course of that time. And it's just amazing to me that of course our journeys at a similar time in our life were pivotal for us. And I just this morning, particularly just having that yoga event and having the spiritual connection with these friends of mine, I'm so grateful that every painful minute that I've experienced over the last couple of years in my life in general, they're just I'm realizing that it's really all for something. And I'm going to continue to have bad days. I mean, don't get me wrong. It seems to happen once a month, as we've learned, but we're working on that. Um, but I will say it's just trust the process and be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Self-compassion is the key.
Yeah, and I think I just want to end this on, we're always either preparing for a storm, we're in a storm, or we're getting out of one. So what I've found is the sooner you can find the gratitude, find the lesson, find the celebration, find the meaning,
Mm,
I think the spiritual journey makes life more meaningful.
absolutely. Well, this has been a hoot.
It's been amazing. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for
I
having
appreciate
me.
it.